Annyeonghaseyo to each and every one of you. In today's video, I wanted to show you another sesame ball recipe, but this time I'm going to be filling it with ube. So I'll show you all how to make sesame balls filled with mung bean and then a taro coconut filling, but today it will be ube filled. It's actually very easy to make as long as you have all the equipment and ingredients to do so. So with that being said, let's just get straight to it and show you how to make it. Let's go. So the first thing we want to make is the ube filling. So in a really good non-stick pan, I'm going to be using some grated purple yam, or also known as ube. And I found this at the freezer section at my local Asian grocery store. They will have different varieties and different brands, so just choose and pick which one you like. But this is the one I'll be using. This one is a 16-ounce or 1-pound bag. It's usually frozen, so just thaw it before you use it. Now, if you don't want to make your own ube filling, you can also buy this ube or purple yam spread. The ingredients here are pretty simple. It has the grated ube in there, some sugar, some water, some pandan flavoring, and some other colorings in there to make it a little bit darker purple. So this one, in terms of consistency, is a little bit more on the softer side because it is a spread. You can tell here it's more jam-like. I tend to not like to use this one because it is more on the sweeter side, and it's a little bit harder to work with in terms of using it in a filling, especially for sesame balls, because it's a lot softer. But I'm actually going to make my own today because I can adjust the sweetness and the texture of it. So we're going to add in the whole 16-ounce bag of grated ube. To that, I'm going to add in some freshly grated coconut. I'm going to add some vanilla extract, some salt, and some evaporated milk, along with some sweetened condensed milk. So this is what's going to make it sweet. If you want to add sugar for that extra sweetness, you can definitely add a few tablespoons of sugar as well, but I'm just going to use sweetened condensed milk because it's quite sweet already. So give this a really good stir and then turn on the heat and allow this to cook for about 5 minutes on medium-high heat until it becomes a really nice paste like this. It's going to get quite thick, so that's what you want. After cooking for about 5 minutes, this is the consistency that I like, so I'm going to stop it here. And we're going to let this cool before we start handling it. So as it sits, you'll start to notice it'll turn slightly a bit darker, but once it cools, we are ready to start rolling this into individual balls. So I'm going to scoop about close to half a tablespoon or about 1.5 teaspoons of the filling here and just roll it with my hands into a ball like this. Now you can make this as small or big as you want. It really depends on you, but I find this size to be just perfect for what I wanted. Other than that, continue with the rest and set this aside while we make the dough. So for the dough, I have a pretty big bowl here and I'm gonna add in some dried potato flakes. So I'm using dried potato flakes because they give this dough a really nice tenderness to it. I'm gonna add in about half a cup of hot boiling water to moisten up the potato flakes and turn it back into mashed potatoes. I'm going to add in some sugar. And then to this, I'm going to be adding a whole bag of glutinous rice flour. This is a 16-ounce bag, and the glutinous rice flour is what gives this sesame ball its really nice chewy texture. I'm going to add in some rice flour as well. Rice flour gives it good structure. Some salt, some baking powder, and then some warm water. So I'm going to be using my hands and I have some gloves on, and we're just going to knead this really well until everything is nice and incorporated. And the consistency you want is something kind of like Play-Doh. So the more you mix this, the more it comes together. And then how I like to test this is just to grab a piece and roll it on the palm of my hand. And if it doesn't stick to my hand and still retains its shape like this, you know the dough is ready. Now, if you don't have rustic potatoes or the dried potato flakes, you can use any type of starch or yam. So in this case, since I'm making an ube sesame ball, you can also make a dough with the ube. So I'm doing the same process. I'm adding about half a cup of the grated ube in there, along with all the dry ingredients and just 2 cups of water. This recipe is the same, minus it doesn't have the half a cup of hot boiling water that we did earlier. The half a cup of boiling water is only if you're going to be using instant or dried rustic potato flakes. But if you decide to make this version of the dough, as you mix it, you'll notice that the dough becomes kind of like a light lavender color. Texturally, it works the same as long as you scaled everything and mixed everything properly. So once the dough is all mixed up, I like to scale each individual portion here to about 1.5 ounces. And this recipe usually makes around 30 to 32 individual sesame ball here. Once all of the dough is scaled and the ube filling is also rolled out, we are ready to fill and roll. So I'm going to take the dough and flatten it out to about maybe half an inch thick, and we're going to place the ube filling in the center and wrap the dough completely all around the ube filling. Make sure there's no air pockets in here. Seal it really well and roll it around the palm of your hands until everything is completely sealed. And there should be no air pockets. If you have air pockets, that's what causes your sesame balls to explode when it's frying. So once that's nice and rolled out, we have some raw sesame seeds here. Don't use any toasted sesame seeds. This should be completely raw sesame seeds. Place the dough right in, and then you want to coat this completely with the sesame seeds. Use the palm of your hand to allow the sesame seeds to coat completely onto the dough here. And this is it. This is what it should look like. Other than that, we're going to continue rolling the rest, and this is what we have here. So you can see the combination of the regular dough that I made and then the other dough that I made with ube. If you have any leftover filling like I did here, you can place it in a Ziploc bag and put it in the freezer and take it out and use it for whenever you want to make sesame balls again. So let's go ahead and fry. I have some vegetable oil or any neutral oil that you like, heated to about 325 degrees Fahrenheit. You don't want any higher than that because the sesame balls can easily burn. Once that's properly heated, we're going to drop in the sesame balls. Once you have it in, just give it a really subtle stir to loosen it from the bottom. And we're going to let this cook on the medium-low heat for at least 10 to 12 minutes. As it cooks, you'll start noticing the sesame balls floating to the top, and some might flip over, some might not. Throughout the cooking process, go ahead and just give it a really good stir so that everything cooks properly and evenly. This 10-minute mark, you'll start noticing the sesame balls becoming golden brown. So at this point, it's pretty much cooked. You can cook it to the preference that you like in terms of color. I kind of like mine more on the golden side, a little bit darker. So I'm going to fry it a tad bit more. But once the sesame balls are fried to your liking, just drain it into a colander and allow this to cool for at least 5 to 10 minutes before you consume it, because the center is fairly hot. And here we have it. Let's go ahead and see what they look like in the inside. And let's take a look at the dough that was made with the ube as well. I also made some mini sesame balls without filling. This is just the fried dough with sesame seeds on the outside. This is the ube dough that I made earlier into tiny little sesame balls. And this is it for today's video. If you want the recipe and some written information with pictures on, I do have my written recipe in my website. So I'll put the link down in the description box for all of you that want to give this recipe a try. Until then, I will see you in my next video.